You know, Jesus got tired too. And Rebuild the City family, I do not think we talk about that enough. We talk about the miracles, the healing, the feeding of the thousand, the raising of the dead, the casting out of demons, the walking on water, the preaching with authority, the power that made hell nervous and heaven visible. But sometimes we preach the power and forget the person. Forget the same Jesus who walked on water also fell asleep in a boat in a storm so deep that waves were crashing and wind was raging, and it still did not wake him up. He was that tired. Mark 4:38 says, and he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. I rushed past that. Jesus was not pretending to rest. He was not taking a cute little spiritual nap. He was asleep in the middle of a storm because ministry had poured out of him. People had pulled up on him, and people and his body needed rest. Nobody rebuked him for that. Nobody looked at him sleeping and said, "Come on, man, get up. People need you." The disciples, they panicked. But heaven did not condemn him for being tired. Jesus rested because he understood something most men never give themselves permission to understand. Rest is not a reward for finished work. Rest is a requirement for sustainable work. Some of you keep treating exhaustion like it is proof of faithfulness. You think if you are drained enough, stretched enough, overwhelmed enough, and running on fumes, that means you are really carrying purpose. But hear me clearly. Burnout is not an anointing. Exhaustion is not a badge of honor. And being constantly available does not mean you are spiritually mature. Even Jesus withdrew. Luke 5:16 says, and he withdrew himself into the wilderness and he prayed. That means Jesus knew how to step away before he stepped back in. He knew how to get quiet before he got public again. He knew that the assignment was too sacred to be carried from an empty soul. And Jesus also wept. Remember Lazarus' tomb? He knew full well he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew resurrection was coming. He knew that the grave was about to lose. He knew the miracle was already in him, but he still stopped and wept. John 11:35 says, Jesus wept because being capable of handling someone does not mean it did not hurt. Being anointed does not mean you did not feel it. And being called does not mean you're enough. Being strong does not mean grief skips over you. Some of you are ashamed that you feel what you feel because you think strength means silence. But Jesus shows us that real strength does not deny pain. Real strength knows how to bring pain into the presence of the Father. And then look at the garden in Gethsemane. In Gethsemane, Jesus sweat drops of blood under the weight of what's coming. The most spiritually powerful man who ever walked the earth was brought to his knees by the pressure of his assignment. Luke 22:44 says, and being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as were great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Did you hear that? Pressure did not make him perform. Pressure made him pray. Jesus did not power through the pain like he had no feelings. He brought it to the Father. He said, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. That is not weakness. That is surrender. So if you're tired, you're in a good company. If it is heavy, it was heavy for him too. If you are carrying responsibility, family, ministry, leadership, bills, grief, pressure, expectations, and private battle nobody sees, hear me, brother. God is not asking you to be superhuman. He sent the Son of Man in human form specifically to show you that the weight is real, the exhaustion is real, the grief is real, the pressure is real, and none of it disqualifies you from the assignment. Hebrews 4:15 says, "For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities." That means Jesus understands the feelings. He understands the body's getting tired. He understands the soul getting heavy. He understands being surrounded by people who need something from you while you are still carrying something they do not understand. So stop condemning yourself for being human. You are not weak because you are tired. You are not faithless because you need rest. And you are not disqualified because the assignment feels heavy. Not less anointed because you had to cry. And you are not less chosen because you had to say, "Father, this is mine." The issue is not whether you get tired. The issue is where you take your tiredness. Jesus brought his exhaustion to rest. He brought his grief to tears. And he brought his pressure to prayer. He brought his will to the Father. And that is exactly what you are supposed to do with yours. Brother, you don't have to collapse in silence trying to prove you are strong. And you do not have to bleed internally while smiling publicly. And you do not have to carry everything like asking for help is a character flaw. You do not have to confuse masculinity with emotional suffocation. Come unto me, Matthew 11:28 says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." This is not a suggestion. That is an invitation to rebuild the city family. Please hear me clearly. Rest, pray, weep if you need to. Step away if you need to. Get quiet if you need to. And bring the pressure to the Father before the pressure breaks something inside of you. Because you are not weak for being tired. You're human. And God already accounted for that when he chose you, chosen one. Ready to walk in covenant, power, and clarity? Email us at info@rebuildthecity.com to get our discipleship blueprint and free deliverance tools to overcome whatever you're struggling with. We are here to help. All our resources are free, and your giving fuels the mission. If led, donate and partner now at rebuildthecity.net. And let's rebuild the city.